Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's afternoon devotional and Bible study. Hi, March. It is March 1st, 2021. We're going to be finishing today's reading. We will be finishing the book of First Samuel with chapter 31. And we'll be reading Jesus is Calling for today. Hopefully your guys' February was great. The sun is shining. It was really blowy and snowstormy earlier on today. But yeah, winter is looking like it's taken its last few swings and spring is around the corner. But yeah, to get started, let's start with Jesus is Calling for today. And before we get started with the actual devotional, every beginning of the month, there's this little Bible verse for the month. So this is John 10:4. When he has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his sheep follow him because they know his voice. So when he, as in Jesus, has brought out all his own, he goes on ahead of them, and his, Jesus' sheep, follow Jesus, him, because they know his voice. John 10:4. And that's one of those interesting things, and something that some days it's super easy, and then other days it's really hard. How do you know that you're hearing God's voice? How do you know that you're hearing Jesus' voice when so many things are trying to masquerade as such? Part of it is actually reading the Bible and not just listening to what teachers say. So don't just listen to what I say as I read and kind of think things through and come up and give my own opinions and reactions to the Bible verses that we read, but to actually get in there yourself. I think that's part of the keys on hearing his voice for us. But for now, speaking about hearing someone's voice, we're going to read the devotional for today, March 1st, which is written from Sarah Young, but it's written in the perspective of Jesus talking to you. So when I say I or whatever in this section, this is written as if it's Jesus talking to you. So without further ado, March 1st, 2021. When something in your life or thoughts make you anxious, come to me and talk to me about it. Bring me your prayer and petition with thanksgiving, saying, "Thank you, Jesus, for this opportunity to trust you more. Though the lesson of trust that I send you may come wrapped in difficulties, the benefits far outweigh the cost. Well-developed trust will bring you many blessings, not the least of which is my peace. I have promised to keep you in perfect peace to the extent that you trust in me. The world has it backward, teaching that peace is the result of having enough money, possessions, insurance, and security systems. My peace, however, is such an all-encompassing gift that it is independent of all circumstances. Though you lose everything else, if you gain my peace, you are rich indeed." And that was inspired by 3 different sections of the Bible. Don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition, with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Philippians 4:6. You will keep in perfect peace him whose mind is steadfast, because he trusts in you. Isaiah 26:3. And then lastly, now may the Lord of peace himself give you peace always in every way. The Lord be with you all. 2 Thessalonians 3, 16. The idea of God's peace, I think, is a really good idea. And it's a great thing to have. With so much chaos and emotion and a lot of our mental health deteriorating during this time, to focus on God and getting his peace over situations, it's so important. All right, so now we're going to open up our Bibles to the book of 1 Samuel, chapter 31. So up to this point, things have been pretty crazy. This is up there with one of the standout books in a lot of ways of the Old Testament for narrative. So this is told a lot like, a TV show. We're entering into the lives and seeing how they react to this situation and that situation. So the story started off with the people of Israel demanding that they get a king, and God saying, no, if you get a king, it's going to go really, really bad. These are all the things that are going to go wrong. And he spoke through his prophet Samuel. And the people were like, no, but we want a king. We want an earthly king. Look at all the other kingdoms around us. We need a king. And God's like, okay, warn them again. And if they still want a king, I will appoint someone to be king. And they said, no, we want a king. And God appointed Saul, who was tall, strong, dark, and handsome. And who saw himself as like, I'm kind of worthless. Like, I'm from this nobody tribe in the middle of this nothing thing, and saw himself as really low. And then God appoints him as king after a few things, and he starts getting a bit of an ego about himself. And some people want to threaten his rule, and he's like, it's okay. God's been doing an awesome thing. Like, I understand why they would doubt. I doubted too. And then slowly, as Saul's reign started going on, he started getting kind of corrupt, and he started putting his power and his desires and his interests in front of God's. And then enter the Philistines. The Philistines came in with massive military power. And it was like, we can wipe you all out, but what we're going to do is we're going to send a champion. Enter Goliath. If you can beat Goliath, then we will back down and let you live. Otherwise, you will be our subjects. And then Goliath came out for 40 days. He mocked and mocked and mocked and threatened and terrified the Israelites, until David was like, so what's all this hubbub about? He's this kind of smallish guy that's a shepherd who's been, protecting sheep from lions, tigers, and bears. Oh my. He sees Goliath and was like, I can take him out. And so I was like, oh, if you do, I'll give you everything. Your family will never have to pay taxes again. I'll give you my daughter in marriage, and so on and so forth. You will save the Israelite nation. He's like, all right, cool. Goes out, kills Goliath. And then Saul's like, oh, this is amazing. And then he starts to kind of pull back on his promises a little. He's like, here, take my daughter in marriage after you go and fight this battle. He'll surely die, and now I'm going to give my daughter away. And then he gets back. Things are good. And he's like, I gave my daughter away, but here's my other daughter. And they fall in love, and David's best friend is Saul's son, Jonathan. And things go on, and Saul begins getting jealous because the people start loving David more than Saul. And Saul gets jealous to the point of like, I'm going to kill him. David flees, and Saul and David are in this cat and mouse game for a long time. And then finally Saul has to go take a dump in a cave, and David comes and cuts off his robe. And as Saul leaves, David's like, I could have killed you, but I didn't because of God. So whatever you think, whatever you're worried about, with me trying to kill you, don't worry about that because that ain't real. And Saul breaks down, and then it happens again. A little while later, and Saul tries to kill David, and David once again sneaks into the camp at night and goes, "I'm not trying to kill you. Smarten up." And all this time, like a bunch of different things are happening. David's like, "I'm just not going to stay in the land of Saul, of the Israelites. I'm going to stay in the land of the Philistines, our enemies, until the Philistines have a battle that they have to face, and they kick David out." So then David goes and returns home. And this is what we talked about yesterday. David goes and returns home, and he finds it in ruins. So then he hunts down the people that were doing it, and he gets all of his stuff back. But on his journey, he came across this guy in the field that helped burn down his village. Weak, misplaced, and left to die, and he shows mercy on him, feeds him, and helps him. And in a lot of ways, I like, from the context of things, it sounds like he gives him his freedom, gives him a new lease on life at the very least. And David gains a victory again, gets all of his stuff back, and that's where we were. And the story continues in 1 Samuel chapter 31. So turn with me, and let's get to it. The death of Saul. Now the Philistines attacked Israel, and the men of Israel fled before them. Many were slaughtered on the slopes of Mount Gilboa. The Philistines closed in on Saul and his sons, and they killed 3 of his sons, Jonathan, Ananab, and Melchishua. The fighting grew fierce around Saul, and the Philistine archers caught up with him and wounded him severely. Saul groaned to his armor bearer, "Take your sword and kill me before these pagan Philistines come to run me through and taunt me and torture me." But his armor bearer was afraid and would not do it. So Saul took his own sword and fell on it. When his armor bearer realized that Saul was dead, he fell on his own sword and died beside the king. So Saul, his 3 sons, his armor bearer, and his troops all died together that same day. When the Israelites on the other side of the Jezreel Valley and beyond the Jordan saw that the Israelite army had fled and that Saul and his sons were dead, they abandoned their towns and fled. So the Philistines moved on and occupied their towns. The next day, when the Philistines went out to strip the dead, they found the body of Saul and his 3 sons on Mount Gilboa. So they cut off Saul's head and stripped off his armor, and they proclaimed the good news of Saul's death in their pagan temple and to the people throughout the land of Philistia. They placed his armor in the temple of the Ashtorites, and they fastened his body to the wall of the city of Bethshean. But when the people of Jabesh Gilead heard what the Philistines had done to Saul, all their mighty warriors traveled throughout the night to Bethshean and took the body of Saul and his sons down from the wall. They brought them to Jabesh, where they burned the bodies. Then they took their bones and buried them beneath the tamarisk tree at Jabesh, and they fasted for 7 days. And that's the end of the book of 1 Samuel. May God add a blessing to the reading of his word. Yeah. This is a bit of a sad one. Um, in this, though, one of the things I did not catch up on in the recap, as Saul was making more and more decisions to feed himself, he ended up going to a medium. He went to like this medium that could speak to the dead and spoke to Samuel, who had passed. And Samuel said, "Yeah, this army that's coming is there. You're not going to survive it, and all of your sons are going to die." And I think Saul kind of knew this because Jonathan, who was um, David's best friend, he got angry and almost killed Jonathan. Saul did because he's like, "You are supposed to be king after me, and you're best friends with the person that's trying to take your throne." And then he tried to kill Jonathan, saying that he was bringing shame to the family. So Saul knew that his selfish ways were ultimately going to lead to his death and lead to the death of his family. He pursued those paths anyway. And it's tragic because here's this man that's been appointed by God, that is flawed, that everybody was asking for, and God said, okay. But he was troubled. He was broken. I think he suffered from bipolar and a bunch of other things. Here's this man that was supposed to be a leader, leading towards something, and he fell short. There are a lot of leaders that we may disagree with, that we might not like, but our call isn't to rebel against them. It's not to kill them. It's to pray for them. David may not have liked what Saul was doing and how he was ruling, but he didn't overthrow him. He didn't kill him when he had the chance. He showed mercy and love and hoped that the love of God overflowing through David would change Saul. And it did, for moment by moment. But Saul would go back time and time and time again. His destructive behavior impacted more than just himself. His selfish stubbornness ended up costing that battle. It cost his family their lives. It cost his sword bearer his life. Don't let your honor be so much that, like, as long as you have breath in your lungs, there's a chance for redemption. We all screw up. We all make mistakes. And God is willing to love us through those. But God knew Saul's heart. Saul felt like there was no way out. And he took his own life. Now there's this gap. There's no more bloodline to be king. So who is going to fill that gap? Saul already gave his blessing to his own enemy, that being David, saying that he was going to be a better king. It's still really sad. So often when we're in relationships with people that we care about, our negative behavior can rub off and negatively impact those that we love. As we're in this time when mental health for a large part of our population is on a decline, that can rub off on the loved ones that we're spending the most time with, even those outside of our home. Especially when you bring that into the grocery store, you bring that into the Walmarts, you bring that into the whatever that store is. There's a lot of things, and our relationships are something that make us super strong, but they're also a vulnerability. God, though, can shine through our weakness. He can shine through our struggle. He can shine through our brokenness as it impacts others. One of the reasons I am a Christian comes down to that golden rule. And I read the golden rule, which is do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. That's basically the Christian version of it. I read that golden rule in about 60 different religions, their version of that rule, because it's in almost every single world religion. And Jesus was the only one that was actively show love to others. A lot of them, there was, well, if no one affects you, then don't affect others. That was like the most of the golden rule was, if you don't negatively affect me, then I'm not negatively going to affect you. I'm not going to go out of my way to hurt you just for the sake of hurting you. You have to hurt me first. Or it was, as long as you do whatever you do, then don't worry about others. As long as you're not hurting someone, you're not actively doing something to hurt someone, then you're okay. And that's one of the ways that we can get into addiction, because we go, well, I'm choosing to drink. I'm choosing to do this. I'm choosing to do that. This is on me. It's not on you. It's on me. And we don't see how our actions impact others. And right here in Saul's life, we see how his actions led to the death of his family, led to his own death. Our actions impact others in ways that we struggle to see, even sometimes when we look back at things. I've had a couple people reach out to me and be like, hey, thank you for this time when this happened. I'm like, what? Like, I did not see it until they said something positive about it. And who knows how many negative impacts I've had. Because I know I'm far, far from perfect. So I try to pray that my influence can be a positive, encouraging, motivating one, an inspirational one. And for God to bring attention to me when it's not. That I might do something to correct or address it specifically. There was a time when I would regularly go to bed at 3 or 4 in the morning. It's kind of snuck back during this pandemic. But I was inviting people out, and we played board games at Tim Hortons on Friday and Saturday nights. And most of the people that were there could handle it and were doing things and were responsible with it. But one person, in order to be with us, was not handling it well. So when that came to my attention, it was like, all right, cool, we got to set limits here, because we're being a bad influence on this one person, and we can help them out by straightening things out ourselves. And really, we should have anyway. Anyways, let me pray, and I'll let you guys get on with your Monday. AJC, awesome Jesus Christ, thank you so much for your word, for the whole book of 1 Samuel. As we transition into 2 Samuel, help give us guidance and direction. I thank you so much for your teaching. Even as hard as it is, the big idea here is that our actions have impact, seen and unseen, on those around us. Help us to have an impact that is for good things. Help our impact be ones that glorify you, that help share the fruits of the Spirit, that the fruits of the Spirit are what come out of us: love, joy, patience, kindness, goodness, and self control. Let that spring through us, and not hate, malice, enjoying when others suffer, and no self control, and all those other things, and how that can negatively impact those around us. Help us be agents of positive change, actively showing love to those around us, because we like to receive love ourselves. And if we don't like to receive love ourselves, help us work on that. Whatever it is that's going on within us that feel like we're unworthy and that we don't want it and we can't trust it, which makes us stressed and anxiety building, help address that. And if we need to talk to a professional that can help, I pray for strength, courage, and guidance and direction on who to talk to and who those people are that we can talk to. Lord, you are awesome. I give up my life to you. Use me, guide me, direct me. I'm sorry for all the times I reward you with betrayal, but help motivate me. Use me to inspire, challenge, and help to grow. And for those that are on the other side of this screen, help them to do likewise. There's always somebody looking, learning. And when you're in a relationship with someone, whether that's brother, sister, friend, coworker, employee, customer, there's so many different relationships that we're a part of that influence and speak into our lives in some way. Help us honor those connection points and use us to be agents of positivity, agents of hope. And I thank you for hard messages like today, where we see how Saul's actions, how they had those negative consequences. Positivity isn't just light, fluffy, hey, look at this. Positivity can happen in the darkness, that yes, things suck, but there's hope. Yes, things are hard, but you love us, Lord. Yes, I don't know how to take the next step forward, so I'm going to rest in you, Lord, and you're going to give me the strength to take that next step, even though I don't know how I can right now. Real positivity comes from those hardships. Just like real friendship is forged through adversity, real positivity is forged in so much of the same way. Give us hope. Give us your Spirit. Thank you for your presence in our lives. All right. Well, thank you guys very much. Have a fantastic day, and God bless.